Revealed, how a 10-year-old girl's incredible ball skills saved a billionaire from 3 attackers. Mia squinted against the bright sun, her heart pounding to the rhythm of her feet striking the soccer ball. Willow Creek's park, with its vibrant green grass and laughter of children, faded into the background as she envisioned herself on the grand stage of a professional match. She could almost hear the roaring crowd, the thrill of victory swirling in her mind. But today was different. Today, a shadow loomed over her perfect afternoon. A commotion erupted nearby, a cluster of voices rising above the childish laughter. Mia's focus faltered. A flash of looming figures caught her eye, the sight of 3 masked men closing in on Jonathan Blake, the billionaire known for his extravagant lifestyle. Her stomach twisted. Instinctively, her pulse quickened. The shiny world of wealth and privilege felt unbearably far from her life, and yet, something deep inside her began to stir. Should I intervene? She whispered to herself, every ounce of her being urging her to act. Her heart wrestled with the fear that had suddenly seized her. What if she was wrong? What if she didn't have what it took? Yet, her mentor and mother's voice echoed in her mind, infusing her with a desperate determination. You stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. Amplified adrenaline propelled her to the scene, but doubt threaded through her thoughts. What could a small girl with nothing but a soccer ball do? It felt silly, even reckless. She fidgeted with her worn cleats. Maybe she should just turn and run. But the sight of Jonathan, cornered and terrified, set her nerves ablaze. In a split-second decision that defied logic, she steadied herself, lined up the ball, and kicked with all her might. The ball whizzed through the air with terrifying precision, shocking the attackers. It struck the ground near them, giving Jonathan a moment of distraction. Yet the exhilaration of her calculated decision was quickly overshadowed by the looming sense of danger. Before she could process the slight victory, the confrontation escalated. The sharp voices of the men cut through the park like knives. "Get out of here, kid!" One of them barked, eyes glinting with malice. The tension swirled around her, thickening like fog. Mia felt her hands tremble, fears colliding with the bravery she had summoned. Was it bravery? Or was it just foolishness? Mia exchanged a glance with Jonathan, who finally saw her, not just a girl playing soccer, but as someone embodying a flicker of hope in the chaos. The universe felt unsteady at that moment. What do we do now? She thought frantically, thoughts spiraling out of control. Her family was at stake, her mother worked hard to provide. What if she failed? What if her idea spiraled into danger for her and everyone she loved? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The masked men advanced, and panic washed over her. A miscalculation could shatter everything. Mia's shoulders tightened as realization struck, this wasn't only about her dreams. Her mother's sacrifices rested on the edge, and the profound nature of their lives collided in her racing mind. Faced with the enormity of it all, she could feel herself crumbling under pressure. Could they get out unscathed? Would bravery alone tide them over? The atmosphere bore down on them, there were no easy options left. As they stood at the precipice of chaos, Mia's heart raced, pinning her hopes on unseen threads of courage and unity. Would they find a way to prevail? The stakes had never felt higher, and the door to uncertainty swung wide open. Mia's instincts kicked in, urging her to think. The masked men loomed nearer, their shadows creeping along the grass. Doubt entangled with determination, she felt like a tightly drawn bowstring. One wrong move could unravel everything. Yet, as time slowed to a heartbeat, she understood this was no longer just about self-preservation. This was an unprecedented opportunity to show her courage, even if it felt fragile and untested. Her eyes darted to Jonathan. Instead of fear, there was an unmistakable glint of admiration, almost bewilderment. In that flicker of understanding, Mia realized that her actions could reshape not only her own life but also Jonathan's perception of her. The stakes elevated. She wasn't merely a girl in the park, she was someone who could make a difference, even if she didn't wholly believe it yet. "Focus," she muttered. The world around her began to dull, her senses sharpening on the task at hand. The attackers shouted obscenities, but their words washed over her like distant echoes, pushing her deeper into her thoughts. What could she do next? The soccer ball, her trusted ally since that very first day she kicked it high above the neighborhood fences, could serve as more than just a weapon. It could be a tool of distraction, a catalyst for what she hoped might happen next. She took a deep breath, drawing on a reservoir of strength she didn't know she possessed. With the attackers still preoccupied with Jonathan, she edged toward an outcropping of bushes. They had drawn too close, daylight was slipping away as panic overtook reason. The thrill of the chase coursed through her, igniting an instinctual improvisational strategy. The ball was her advantage, she needed to act fast. Mia steadied herself, casting a quick glance at Jonathan. She envisioned that moment of glory the way she had imagined the crowd cheering her on. But this wasn't a game, this was real life, and reality demanded a different kind of strategy. With almost surgical precision, she pulled back her leg, focusing on the attackers rather than succumbing to their taunts. She struck the ball again, launching it with ferocity to break the tense atmosphere. The thud as it hit a tree a mere few feet away created the perfect moment of panic among the men, who momentarily shifted their attention. "Run, Jonathan!" she yelled, the rush of adrenaline fueling her voice. She watched him scramble from his post as the men's eyes darted towards the sudden noise. Daring a look around, she seized her chance. As Jonathan dashed past, she quickly followed, emboldened by the tiny victory she'd snatched from the jaws of chaos. The split-second diversion had unshackled her from despair and planted her in a fierce state of survival. Every ounce of her training on the field poured into her movements, the grace, the speed, the instinctual offense. But just as they neared the edge of the park, Mia paused. The masked men regrouped, anger writ large on their faces. There was still a standoff, an unnatural tension lingering in the air as they glared at her and Jonathan. She felt the adrenaline start to ebb, replaced with something more potent: defiance. In that pivotal moment, standing there with Jonathan, she recognized that her fight wasn't just physical, it was about assertion. "What's the term I learned? Courage in the face of adversity?" she thought, chin nodding resolutely. Her breath became steady, her heart steadying within her chest. They weren't backing down, they were reclaiming their ground. As her hope flickered into determination again, she could feel a weight settle over her, both daunting and liberating. Together, they would confront the looming threat. Just then, she noticed a glint of metal in the hands of one of the attackers, something resembling a weapon. Panic surged through her once more as she realized this was escalating beyond a mere confrontation. This was no longer just a struggle for safety, it had transformed into a fight not only for their lives but also for their right to stand firm against intimidation. Would they prevail against this unexpected danger? The intensity of the moment hung palpably in the air as they squared off against the masked figures, and Mia braced herself for the storm ahead. The time had come to face their greatest fears. Mia felt the weight of uncertainty slide through her as she braced herself. The attackers, bolstered by the menace swirling around them, were gaining confidence, their weapons glinting ominously in the fading light. Fear threatened to seep back into her mind, a familiar yet unwelcome visitor, but she refused to let it consume her. "Think, Mia," she instructed herself silently, her heart racing in tandem with her thoughts. In the depths of her anxiety, an inner dialogue emerged, one that focused on her instincts honed over years of soccer. Here was an opportunity to pull from those moments on the pitch where her agility had defined the game, where her decisions could lead to victory. Jonathan was flanking her, a silent partner in this desperate dance. She could sense his fear evolve into something more resolute as he stood beside her. They were two unwilling warriors thrust into a battle they had never anticipated but irrefutably could not back down from now. One of the attackers, emboldened by his comrades, stepped forward, his weapon brandished menacingly. An instinctual anger bubbled within Mia. This wasn't just any confrontation, it was a surge into the unknown realms of her potential. The last shred of hesitation slid away as she assessed the situation strategically. She began formulating a plan, a calculated distraction. With the men's focus on them, she gathered her breath and, with a swift, determined move, pointed towards the far edge of the park. "Look!" she shouted, feigning an exaggerated gesture. "There's someone over there." The combination of misdirection and her intense sense of urgency sparked something primal within her adversaries. For a brief instant, their eyes flickered towards her imagined threat. That was all the opening she needed. "Mia, what are you doing?" Jonathan's voice trembled, but he glanced at her with a glint of comprehension. "I've got this. Trust me." She snapped back, disbelief and conviction colliding in her resolve. In that breathless moment, she would let her instincts take the lead, pouring everything she had into a single act. Practiced movements surged through her muscles, and in a flash, she retrieved the soccer ball again, hands almost instinctively arching around it like a trusted companion. With a powerful swing, she launched the ball directly at the nearest attacker. He barely had time to react as it collided with him, a resounding thump echoing through the charged atmosphere. The force knocked him off balance, shock spreading across his features. Spurred by this spectacle, joy uncoiled inside her, urging her to further test her limits. While the man staggered back, Mia witnessed the collective moment of confusion among them. It was enough for Jonathan to rally, enough to throw off their cautious standoff, enough anxiety to ebb of Mia's heart. "Now!" she yelled again, beckoning Jonathan's answer to her call. He surged forward, finding strength in her buoying confidence, and together they bolted towards an opening in the darkness. The sudden momentum forced the attackers to recalibrate, scrambling to respond. Mia and Jonathan weaved through the path, harnessing a mix of terror and exhilaration, just like a player navigating through defenders, creating space with every step. She felt her body come alive, fueled by something greater than fear, a hidden reservoir of strength that begged to be acknowledged. Yet, just as freedom flickered like a distant flame ahead, Mia glanced back to confront the chaos they were leaving behind. The masked figures regrouped, a specter of intimidation that wouldn't relent easily. Suddenly, the realization hit her: this was not just about a momentary escape, it had become a fight for something larger, a stand against tyranny that could stretch far beyond what she had anticipated. A flicker of dread washed over her, aware they were not merely running away, but that they might have to confront the full force of the attackers yet again. The adrenaline surged within her, coupled with a pulsing sense of purpose. Would they make it out of this alive? More importantly, would this moment of confrontation ignite a change within her, a transformation she had scarcely considered before now? As she and Jonathan forged ahead, determination etched deeply within her essence, Mia could feel the stakes elevating once more, and doubt retreated in the face of courage. The park, safe haven and battleground alike, held a brutal lesson that was just beginning to unfold. The decision lay ahead, teetering on the precipice of fear and defiance. Would she run again, or would she stand and confront not only her attackers but also the emerging fighter within her? As the shadows grew longer, so did the weight of her choice. Mia's mind raced, a whirlwind of possibilities. Each step farther felt like both a courageous breakthrough and a desperate gamble. What had started as an instinctual reaction was now morphing into a complex strategy woven from her past, her heart pounding with both fear and exhilaration. She could feel Jonathan's presence, a tether of shared resolve, reinforcing a sense of solidarity amidst chaos. They ducked behind a row of bushes, their breath ragged as adrenaline coursed through them. For a fleeting moment, the world narrowed to only their heartbeat, the silence around them pulsating with anticipation. Mia's rapid thoughts turned inward as she grappled with a burgeoning realization this was a test. Not just of her physical capabilities, but of her character, her will to fight back, and her capacity to adapt under pressure. Why did I throw the ball? She wondered, reflecting on the impulsive choice that had thrust them from danger into uncertainty. The act itself had seemed like a diversion, but it was deeper than that. Each play in soccer had taught her about timing, precision, and, above all, confidence. Mia had never felt braver than when her feet danced across the grass, delivering perfect strikes. Now, as she ran, she felt the same fire flickering to life again, reawakening the competitor within her. Are we safe? Jonathan's whisper broke through her thoughts. She considered their situation. A few yards away, their attackers bickered amongst themselves. The confrontation had shifted. Chaos stirred in the air, and while they had suffered an initial shock, determination radiated from the masked figures. Mia could sense that the moment of opportunity was fleeting, the window narrowing. They had to act fast. Mia. Jonathan urged, pulling her gaze back from the danger. What should we do? The question hung thick with urgency, compelling her to respond. Mia recalled the patterns of the game, how she had always thrived on creating play opportunities. But this wasn't just a game, it was a fight for survival, a chance to reshape their fate. With newfound clarity, she began to formulate their next move. We need to circle around and get to higher ground. If we can spot a way out, we can use that. Jonathan nodded, trust glimmering in his eyes, and their panic suddenly shifted to focus as they darted through the dense undergrowth. What had been a mere flight transformed into a coordinated maneuver, her instincts bubbling to the surface. The rush grew intoxicating again. She was capable of navigating this chaos, strategizing every step as she would on the field. As they ascended a small hill, Mia spotted the darkened playground, a potential escape route. Over there. She pointed, urgency blending seamlessly with hope. We can use the swings for cover. They moved in sync, hearts hammering as they edged closer. Yet, as they reached the playground, the attackers had re-strategized. Mia could see them scanning the area, growing more alert. They were cornered. Would they retreat to the safety of the bushes or risk open exposure? The decision loomed, flashing into her mind like a neon sign. Mia felt the defining pressure to fight or run once again. This time, as calming breath steadied her racing heart, she confronted more within herself. It was not merely the attackers standing before her but the silence of self-doubt lingering in shadows. Would she cling to safety, or could she strike back defiantly, the echoes of past glories fueling her resolve? Time slowed as she surveyed their adversaries. With each breath deepening her resolve, her instincts sparked again. The park had morphed from a backdrop of terror to a stage for her burgeoning strength. This was about more than survival, it demanded all of her. As Mia stepped forward, heart pounding with determination, she sensed the gravity of her choice, one that not only confronted the external threat but unearthed the fighter within her. Would this be her moment of reckoning? The tension shimmered in the air as the ground beneath them quickened with purpose, ready for the dance of confrontation. Before the moment crystallized, just as she was about to call out her plan, a deep voice reverberated through the darkness. You think you can hide? Every nerve prickled, and her heart froze momentarily. The true test of courage had arrived. How would she face not just the attackers, but the woman she was evolving into? What lay ahead would forge her path in uncharted territory where fury met courage head-on. Would it be enough? The world shattered into an electric silence as Mia's pulse throbbed in her ears. The deep voice echoed defiantly, as if to shatter her resolve. She instinctively shifted her weight, her mind racing to construct an answer, a plan. Panic surged within her, clashing against a newfound sense of agency. Every fiber of her being screamed to respond, not just for her survival, but for the clarity of who she could become. Stay close, she hissed to Jonathan, her breath catching slightly in her throat as she began to assess their options. The attackers, still agitated, were closing in, but now their movements felt hesitant like hunters that had just become aware of their prey's unexpected tenacity. The very nature of their aggressive posture shifted, which ignited a flame in Mia. If they could find the right moment, her fears could be faced head-on. In that moment, everything transformed. The weight of her past, the losses, the triumphs, the moments of brilliance on the soccer field welled up inside her. The risk of failure had haunted her for so long, yet here was the ultimate proving ground. Was she defined by her fears or by her refusal to let them overwhelm her? Mia's decision crystallized with each heartbeat. She was ready to confront the chaos. "Remember what I taught you about space control?" she whispered to Jonathan, nodding toward the swings. "We split up. You cause a distraction, and I'll slip around to the slides. If I can get above them, I can pivot." Jonathan's eyes widened, but slowly, he nodded. Trust radiated from him, and it enriched her determination. "On three," she continued, adrenaline fueling her voice. They readied themselves, tension hanging in the air like a taut string, quivering on the verge of snapping. She caught his eye, counting silently despite the chaos enveloping them. 1, 2, 3. In one fluid motion, Jonathan dashed toward the swings, his movements carefully intricate yet frantic enough to draw the attention of their would-be captors. Mia bolted for the slides, her heart thrumming with a cocktail of fear and exhilaration. The moment felt surreal. It was both a fight and a dance, one full of rhythm and instinct. As she climbed the ladder, she could hear the shouts of the attackers, their confusion simply a backdrop to her intensity. Each rung was a reminder of her journey, an ascent from the girl who hesitated in the face of adversity to one who embraced the conflict in choice. As she reached the top, Mia steadied her breath, peering through the tunnel slide, a strange sense of clarity washing over her. There, she sensed their churning emotions. The attackers were grappling with frustration and anger, their confidence waning as they struggled to locate Jonathan amidst the swings. This window of opportunity glimmered like a beacon. It was time to act. "Now!" she shouted, launching herself down the slide with precision, harnessing her own momentum. The world blurred by as dread morphed into focus. She was charged by purpose and power. Mia emerged at the bottom, just off to the side, throwing a calculated kick at one of the attackers from the shadows of the structure. The impact reverberated as she felt the thrill coursing through her veins. Uproar erupted, and chaos reigned again, but now she was part of the storm rather than just a victim swept within it. The confrontation ignited not just a physical battle but ignited a personal renaissance. Each move felt deliberate. There was a newfound strength bubbling to the surface. It was about more than fighting back. It was about claiming the woman she was evolving into. But just when Mia felt a surge of triumph, uncertainty loomed once more. Another figure materialized behind her, larger and more menacing. The sound of approaching footsteps sent a chill racing down her spine. Would this be the moment she faltered, or would she confront yet another challenge head-on? The essence of her battle was not just against the physically intimidating but against the barriers she had erected within herself. As a new threat emerged, the time had come to face the ultimate test of her courage. Would she rise again? Mia's instincts kicked in as she pivoted, adrenaline coursing through her body like wildfire. The hulking figure stood menacingly just feet away, a storm of fury etched on his face. Memories of her childhood flashed through her mind, moments of relentless training, the sweat dripping down her face as she practiced in the backyard, the agony of falling and the sweet taste of victories. Each recollection fortified her resolve, unlocking a determination she hadn't realized she possessed. "Keep moving," she commanded herself, forcing her legs to respond. She couldn't allow fear to stall her momentum. With a swift sidestep, Mia ducked beneath the outstretched arm, aiming to seize her. The attacker stumbled, momentarily thrown off balance, and in that fleeting second, she seized the opportunity. Her body moved autonomously. Years of conditioning from sports were kicking in. Connecting the dotted lines of physical prowess and strategy, Mia utilized her prior experiences to navigate this brutal dance. She launched herself into the air, converting her height into an advantage, landing a solid kick to the assailant's side. The blow reverberated through her entire being, echoing her power over fear. The figure reeled back, a flash of shock crossing his face, briefly turning into confusion as he processed that this unassuming girl was resisting their assault. Mia felt the surge of exhilaration once more, transforming fear into drive. She was not merely defending, she was reclaiming her agency. However, a jab of urgency pierced through her triumph. This was only the beginning. The attacker was regaining his footing, eyes narrowing with renewed intent. She could hear the scuffle continuing in the background as Jonathan maneuvered around, presumably working to create another angle for an escape or distraction. As she readied herself for another strike, awareness seeped in. This fight was as much about mental conditioning as it was about physical prowess. Each movement mattered, not just in the mechanics of fighting but in the psychology of overcoming. She was no longer just a soccer player relying on reflexes. She was a young woman unearthing her courage in the face of danger, redefining her identity with each decision made under duress. Amid the chaos, a stark realization pierced through: this encounter was a reflection of her battles beyond these walls. The high-stakes matches, the vulnerability felt after a missed goal, every instance of doubt collapsing into something stronger. Mia resolved to push this newfound strength beyond this current fight. There was power in not just surviving, but in thriving through adversity. Just as she prepared to retaliate again, the assailant charged at her with renewed ferocity. The size difference was daunting, but she refused to back down. Instead, she calculated her next move. With a clear mind, she employed her training. She ducked, rolled to the side, and took advantage of his momentum. She had been taught that every action resulted in a counteraction, and now she could harness that theory in real time. As she regained her footing, Mia felt the warm flush of empowerment washing over her. This fight was more than external, it demanded a reckoning with her internal barriers, the doubts, insecurities, and narratives built around what she could or could not accomplish. Each conflict was an invitation to rewrite her story. But before she could fully grasp her transformation, the chaotic rhythm of the battle shifted quickly. Jonathan's voice broke through the tumult, urgent and sharp. "Mia! Look out!" Her heart dropped as another figure emerged from the shadows, a third attacker, eyes glinting with an unfathomable resolve, closing in like a viper. There was no time to waver, her mind raced ahead. The ultimate test was clawing at her senses. Would she embrace this challenge? Would she dig deep to discover the depths of her capabilities, or would she retreat in fear? The moment of truth had arrived, and any semblance of doubt had to be extinguished. With resolve hardening her stance, Mia took a deep breath. Calculating her next move. This wasn't just a fight against an external enemy, it was a battle for her identity, a defining moment that could determine the course of her life ahead. Would she stand firm, or would she falter, caught between fear and fierce aspiration? The decision loomed over her like the shadow of the assailant approaching rapidly. Mia's heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears as sight and sound narrowed to a single point of focus: the oncoming attacker. Every instinct within her screamed to evade, to shift, and to respond with precision. This was no longer about survival in an alley, it was about asserting herself against more than just her assailants. The third figure lunged, and in that split second, she saw an opportunity not simply to react but to command the narrative of this confrontation. The foundation of her soccer training emerged: timing, footwork, and controlled aggression converged. As she sidestepped the incoming attack, she felt time elongate, a surreal moment where her entire life cascaded into clarity. Throwing herself into a counteroffensive, Mia executed a move she had perfected on the field: a sharp pivot followed by a swift kick aimed directly at her would-be attacker's knee. The powerful strike landed with a satisfying force, sending him staggering. Yet, the satisfaction was fleeting, she couldn't celebrate. There were still two adversaries looming large in her periphery. Amidst the physical turmoil, a revelation struck: she was starting to understand the fight was also fundamentally psychological. Each punch thrown and kick executed echoed the internal battles she faced daily: her doubts, her insecurities, and her fears of inadequacy. Each collision with the assailants was not just a clash of bodies, it was a confrontation with every aspect of herself she had ever battled against. As the second attacker regained composure, Mia, undeterred by exhaustion or fear, squared her shoulders. She stared her opponent down, mental clarity cutting through the chaos like a beam of light. This wasn't an undirected frenzy. She was harnessing everything, the years of persistence, the training, the endless repetitions that had built her into this moment. "Mia, we need to focus on getting out," Jonathan called, his voice trembling with urgency. "No," she shouted back, her voice rising above the din. "We have to stand our ground." The resolve in her heart fought against the instinct to flee. In these moments of pressure, she could feel an evolution unfolding, not just a physical transformation but a deeper understanding of her own capabilities, a revelation that she was more than her fears. Her body moved without hesitation, intuitively selecting her next actions, as if her past struggles had telegraphed the ideal responses. A flickering glance over her shoulder confirmed Jonathan was still in the fray, but she couldn't afford to let doubt infiltrate her mind. Every second counted. She was about to embrace the storm within, aligning her motivation with her actions. She would not simply survive today, she owed it to herself to rise to the occasion. With a powerful surge, she redirected her attention back to the attackers, using their momentum against them, executing every technique she'd learned, layering footwork with strategic displacement. Suddenly, a thought anchored her. She had always been the underdog in her battles on the field, yet each time those challenges had refined her, molding her into a resilient fighter. The desperation ignited within her. Would she continue to mold her identity as one defined by overcoming or one defined by retreating? Gathering each ounce of her strength, she reformed not just in body but in spirit, irrespective of the blows she had taken. As the tension crescendoed, an unexpected loud crash echoed in the alley, drawing the attacker's attention momentarily. Her heart thudded, the world spun for a moment. Could this be the opening they needed? The room felt suddenly charged with potential, and the air crackled with the possibility of decisive action. Whatever waited beyond that crash could tip the balance, but this small fissure in the conflict also posed a greater threat. Was it an ally, or an even bigger adversary ready to pounce? Mia took a deep breath, ready to push beyond where her previous limits once stood. The dual fight unfolded, not just for survival, but for the revelation of her true self. Would this moment forge an identity of empowerment, or was it leading her toward an even greater reckoning? The answer loomed on the threshold, teasing the possibilities of the next chapter in her journey, echoing in the dizzying heartbeat of the moment. The crash reverberated around them, a sound sharp enough to momentarily freeze both Mia and her attackers. Her eyes darted towards the source, a tangle of reflections flickering across the narrow alley. Shadows danced against the graffiti, and for a pulse, the tension held its breath. Mia's mind raced. What lay beyond that sound? The possibilities flickered like a nervous flame, igniting her instincts further. Jonathan's voice was barely a whisper, but his urgency pulled her back to the immediate threat. The attackers hesitated, glancing at one another as if searching for a cue, a signal. Seizing this gap felt crucial. As they regrouped, Mia felt a shift within her. Gone were the nerves that had once tethered her to fear. Instead, every ounce of her training surged to the forefront, recalling drills, strategic movements, and the essence of teamwork. The clarity she found was akin to breaking through the surface of turbulent water, gasping for fresh, invigorating air. She whispered to Jonathan, "Trust me." It wasn't a statement, it was an invocation, a call to rally their determination. She sensed his hesitance but pushed past it. They were not just bodies fighting for survival, they were a team anchored in shared experiences and loss. As the attackers closed the distance again, Mia stepped forward. She had trained herself to read the game, and this was no different. They were underestimating her resolve. With one swift motion, she redirected her energy, anticipating their next moves with the precision of a skilled midfielder. The feeling of power surfaced, stronger than fear. The first moving figure lunged, but Mia feigned left before pivoting right, directing her weight into a solid kick toward his midsection. She felt the connection, the satisfying impact that sent him stumbling back. Empowerment flowed through her in waves. But the remaining attacker, more cautious, circled her, calculating the risk. Mia raised her fists and planted her feet firmly. This was not just a dance of power but a fulcrum of psychological dominance. She wasn't just surviving, she was taking control of the narrative. "Remember the game," she whispered, her eyes locked onto his. Every equation for success she'd internalized on the field now resonated. Just like soccer, this confrontation required positioning, timing, and sharp decision-making. She could feel her heart sinking with the rhythm of the fight. With a sudden burst, the last attacker struck, trying to capitalize on her focus. Mia predictably leaned into his swing, anticipating the feint that would open up an opportunity. She dove beneath his swing and turned, her foot finding unsuspecting ground, striking like she had in practice. Every action ignited her sense of identity, molding her into someone who would not simply yield. Here she was redefining herself, each moment became a mosaic of bravery, a testament to her soul fighting back against every challenge it had experienced. Just then, as the second attacker stumbled away from her kick, the shadows beyond the alley shifted. Emerging figures started to break through the gloom, illuminated by the overhead lights. Were they allies or adversaries? Her breath hitched in her throat, and in that breath, a clarity crystallized an epiphany. Mia wasn't simply fighting for survival any longer, she was fighting to redefine the face of her life's journey, to shed the image of a reluctant, fearful girl. She was becoming a force to be reckoned with, not just in this alley, but in all facets of her existence. Her next course of action loomed clearly. She had an opportunity now to stake her claim, to initiate change not only in this moment but for every doubt she had ever held on to. The figures in the shadows drew nearer, and with them came the question: could they be the turning point in this struggle, or would they inject more chaos into her already fragile moment? Her fingers tightened around the resolve housed in her chest. The fight was far from over, and the threshold of her true self still awaited its moment to emerge fully. What awaited her beyond? This alley could redefine not just her present, but her entire existence. Mia's heart raced as the approaching figures stepped into the narrow alley's flickering light. She saw the outlines sharpen and resolve take form. In that moment of clarity, she recognized both the potential allies and the heightened risk they represented. The panic momentarily surged in her chest, but she reined it in, channeling focus into every determined breath. From her peripheral vision, she could still sense Jonathan's presence, his anxiety palpable, yet mixed with an unspoken trust. He was watching her, assessing her choices, and she felt the weight of his gaze. This wasn't just about fighting back, it was about asserting herself in a world that often belittled her abilities, about proving her strength and worth through action. The figures advancing toward them stopped at the edge of the light, two dressed in tactical gear, faces obscured by masks, while the third wore a flowing coat that billowed around her. An air of authority surrounded her, a presence unmistakable amid the tension, a pressure that made Mia's instincts scream caution. Were these strangers here to help, or were they another layer to the chaos ensnaring them? The lead figure tilted their head slightly, appraising Mia and Jonathan. "Are you all right?" The voice was steady, confident. It radiated an unexpected calmness. Mia fought her defensive instinct to respond harshly. She shifted her stance, redirecting her energy from instinctive aggression to measured strength. "Depends on who you are," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Confirmation and validation surged within her, she had assumed the role of protector. "I'm with the security agency," the woman responded. "We heard the commotion and came to assist. But we need to know you can handle yourselves. Are you ready?" Mia locked eyes with Jonathan. He nodded slightly, and Mia's resolve deepened. What were they ready for? The fight she had just faced had awakened something potent inside her, her instincts locked and loaded, no longer second-guessing. She was ready to seize this moment. More than ready, she stated defiantly, striking a pose reminiscent of the soccer field, both aggressive and inviting energy. Their hesitation shifted when another figure moved in from behind the group. It was him, the man who had loomed over her in the aftermath of previous transgressions. "Think you can play the game?" he challenged, stepping closer. The atmosphere thickened, and Mia's mind raced. The fight from moments before faded, replaced by the urge to put herself on the line. She would no longer hide behind fear and uncertainty. This was the moment to confront her past, to face her demons head-on. She had been living like a marionette, and now it was her strings she would cut. "I'm not afraid," Mia retorted, edging forward, fueled by an impulse she hadn't recognized until that very moment. There was recognition in the eyes of the masked intruders. They hadn't expected her spirit to ignite, her confidence clear as day. He smirked, but the line of skepticism had been drawn. "Perhaps you should be." With a flick of his wrist, he beckoned the other two to draw closer. Jonathan moved protective posture beside her. "You're not going to take her anywhere," he asserted, but Mia felt herself slipping away from the comforting safety of his words. Mia's heart thrummed as the air grew heavy with a palpable challenge. This was a pivot point in her journey, an opportunity to define her narrative. She needed to leverage this unpredictability, pull the threads of her training together, and apply them in this potentially life-changing confrontation. This moment was destined to challenge everything she assumed about herself. "What if the next move depends on you?" whispered a voice deep inside, one that had been quiet for too long. The way forward was suddenly living in vivid color, every option at her fingertips. Mia steeled herself yet again, aware the stakes had just escalated. The time had come to face them not just with fists, but with intellect and cunning. As tensions built, she sensed the fabric of her identity weaving itself anew around her choices. What would that choice cost her? Would she emerge unscathed, or would this be the moment she would finally come face to face with the complexities of her own courage? The line between fear and resolve blurred, and it was time to decide who she would choose to become. Mia's heart raced as she stood her ground against the approaching figures, her pulse echoing the chaos around her. This was the culmination of her journey, a test of her newfound strength and identity. Unlike before, when her hesitance had cast shadows over her aspirations, she now felt the heat of confidence coursing through her veins, igniting a fire that could not be extinguished. "Are you ready to play?" The lead figure pressed, his voice commanding yet uncertain, as if weighing the resolve behind her youthful eyes. The moment was electric, caught between disbelief and determination. Mia recalled all her hours of training, every sprint, every shot on goal, the time spent pushing past her limits. Her body had learned to respond to pressure, and now it echoed her resolve. "I've been ready my whole life," Mia declared, her voice solid and unwavering. Her conviction enveloped her like armor. Jonathan stood beside her, a steadfast ally willing to face this storm together. Their bond had been forged in adversity, and it shone brightly in this pivotal moment. The tension in the alley intensified as the masked figures shifted, assessing her defiance. Mia's mind raced with strategies, a tapestry of soccer plays melding into a broader survival instinct. She had grown from a timid girl to a steadfast protector, drawing strength from the lessons learned when tackling the field's toughest challenges. "Let us show them what we're made of," she whispered to Jonathan, who gave a slight nod. Together, they formed an unbreakable force. Could her courage become a catalyst for change? For the first time, she truly believed it could. Without warning, the lead figure lunged forward, attempting to seize control of the situation. But Mia was ready. She bypassed the fear that would have paralyzed her in the past and used her knowledge of movement and strategy. With a swift sidestep, she outmaneuvered the assailant, executing a well-honed soccer-style kick aimed at the man's midsection. The impact reverberated, a testament to her focus and furious determination. In the chaos, Mia tapped into every ounce of her training. With precision, she summoned her skills, weaving through the oncoming attackers. Each stride grew more confident as she danced between fear and bravery. Jonathan kept pace beside her, similarly bolstered by the energy of solidarity, his own courage unifying with hers to render them a powerhouse in this uncharted territory. Mia caught glimpses of shifting expressions amongst their adversaries. Once confident, they faltered under the fierce resilience emanating from the duo. Today was not just about self-preservation, it transcended into a bold stand against intimidation. This moment forged the essence of her character, the time to reclaim not just her space, but redefine the narrative. As they fought back against the assailants, an understanding crystallized within Mia. She was no longer the girl who questioned her capabilities. She had conquered her fears, and this was a chapter defined by strength, grit, and growth. With each strike, she felt herself rewriting her story, shedding the limitations she once felt suffocated by. The cacophony of their battle turned into a symphony of liberation, each blow echoing her triumph over doubt as she embraced the vibrant identity of the warrior she had always been meant to embody. Then, the alley shifted once more, a newly illuminated path revealing itself, the figures retreating in confusion. The last remnants of fear washed away, replaced by a resounding sense of accomplishment. They had confronted their fears head-on, standing tall against those who threatened their integrity. With the attackers finally retreating, Mia and Jonathan exchanged glances laden with unspoken admiration and mutual recognition of their transformation. "We did it," Jonathan breathed, pride sparkling in his eyes. "Mia, you showed them and yourself what you're made of," he affirmed, the acknowledgement solidifying her growth. Mia could hardly believe the emotion swelling within her. A fusion of confidence and fulfillment sharpened her senses. The struggle had morphed her, highlighting her resilience and courage. She had finally stepped into her power. In the distance, sirens wailed, drawing nearer. Help was coming. But that didn't matter as much as the reconception of who she had become. The petite girl who once hesitated to act amidst fear had brilliantly emerged, not just intact but thriving. Mia stood tall, shoulders squared, heart bursting with pride. She was no longer chasing shadows, she had illuminated her path. The battle had catalyzed her transformation, a fresh chapter promising greater heights ahead. Today was a testament to her triumph over adversity, a harbinger of future victories she would undoubtedly seize. The alley, a silent witness to her metamorphosis, echoed a powerful truth: bravery and resilience lay not in the absence of fear but in the relentless defense of one's values and the pursuit of their dreams. And as Mia stepped into the light, she recognized that this was just the beginning of her journey, a courageous legacy she would continue to craft. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.